from the keyhole people, show you got heart. We're playing the game. We're totally scoring, learning how to make a virtual event. This boring, showing up every morning, ready for the show. Gold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
Live from Port here to see some good friends who and the amazing Hall of Fame speaker Ford Six is presenting tonight. So I took a little drive and said I got to see Ford. It should be a good time. And I'm here with the National Speakers Association Oregon, another great chapter. I believe it's an elite chapter too. So if you're ever in the Portland area, make sure and look them up. Hey, make sure if you're on social media here, subscribe, share, like, or comment. We also if you want every episode of Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, you can go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online and subscribe on one of your 13 favorite platforms. Apparently, Apple Podcast is the #1 platform for the Engaging Virtual Meeting podcast. We just finished this year's Engaging Conference, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. We had 3 Hall of Fame speakers this year. We had multiple other people on the stage, people from chapter leadership, and everybody that went universally said it was a really key event. In fact, they said so much so that they're not calling it a conference, they're calling it a retreat. I'm going to release the video for it this Wednesday, so if you're on my social media, make sure and check that out. Now, coming up next is that we have today's guest. I met this gentleman on Marty Dickinson's Speaker Speak Live. He's known for his master's degree in organizational management. He's got a bachelor's of science, right, underachiever, in business information systems, and he's worked over the past decade in Toastmasters. I can tell you that for sure because his feedback is spot on. Let's welcome our good friend, Mark Entrekin. Mark, good morning.
Hey,
How are
John,
you doing?
good morning. Good seeing you this morning. Thanks for
Yeah,
your
good seeing
time.
you. It's so weird. It's not a Wednesday, right? We're always seeing each other on a Wednesday, Mark.
Well, will I see you on Wednesday also?
What's that?
Will I see you this Wednesday also?
Uh, I believe so. I have to double check my schedule. It's like, everything. Have you ever done that, Mark, where like either you attend or you plan a conference and like everything before and afterwards kind of wiped out because of how much you have to focus?
Exactly. Yeah, you're so right, John. And that's one of the things and we'll talk more about later, the virtual life that we have and be able to schedule all the things that we have coming up. And then we think about our Wednesday meeting and all the things that come upon it and juggling and pushing them aside. What's our priority? But absolutely, I'll be the session leader this week.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So congratulations for that, Mark. I think I'm going to be the
Thank you.
session leader for the first time in November. So again, if check that out, speakerspeaklive.com, I believe is the right address, or you could just search the word Speaker Speak Live. And if you are looking to improve your speaking or even just be in the audience and watch other great speakers, it's a great place to be. But this is your time, Mark. So let's take a little moment here. And for my friends who don't know you, take a moment to introduce who you are and what you do, Mark.
Great, John. Thank you so much. I am a coach, consultant, speaker, and instructor. Anger and prejudice, but I also teach at the University of Denver. I teach in the master's program on business, technology, project management, program management. But my drive in this world, John, is to help us all come to an understanding that as strong and as powerful as we are here in the United States, we have helped others as they have helped us grow in many ways of strength so that we are more partners and we must be better partners going forward. But for too much of our growth and our learning, I think we have become a little bit insecure. And for some of the people, a lot of our leaders are also maybe a little bit immature. So I am helping people in achieving unity through the power by harnessing the power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others personally as well as professionally. There's so much more that we can do, and I want to help lead that process as we do all grow forward.
Oh, thank you, Mark. You know, a lot of us are talking about DEI, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it sounds like you were doing it long before it was a thing. And recently, it seems like it's unbecoming a thing. Many companies are actually removing their DEI positions or some of their projects or programs. I'm curious from your perspective, what do you see either in the industry and from your seat?
I am so glad you asked that, John. That is a situation that we're up against. I was on two DEI meetings yesterday, congratulating a person that just won a big award from DEI. DEI is here to stay. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's here to stay. The problem that we ran into is that, and like you said, it came a little bit after my Achieving Unity. I've been doing this since 2012,
Yeah.
2010. It's a situation where when we came up with DEI to begin with, and I didn't come up with that, it was beyond me. I was a late participant, but too much of DEI started out with a repayment for problems in the past. Well, Johnny did this and Jenny did this, and they did this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. And there was a repayment search in a way for past mistakes. And there are no doubt we made mistakes. And I am part of that process because when I was just in the second grade, of course, I didn't have my degrees yet from college when I was just getting out of second grade. So I wasn't quite as learned, but my parents moved from southern Mississippi to southeastern New Mexico. So I moved
Hmm.
from a somewhat black community to a somewhat Hispanic community. And me being at
Oh.
that ripe old age, what was I, probably 7 years old, I didn't understand. Wait a minute, these guys are my friends. These people are my friends.
Mm.
So I didn't understand the prejudice of it, but a lot of the things that I had already learned by the time I was seven, the name calling, the degrading, the somebody else is always wrong from the different areas impacted me.
Yeah.
So luckily, I've been able to grow beyond that. And that's what I want to do with achieving unity through the harnessing the power of encouraging, inspiring, including others, because we
Yeah.
are all the same. And I don't know how much time we have this morning. I could get in my story about what I call the love circulation, our blood that flows through our body, our love circulation. The blood types, there's only four: A, B,
Yeah.
AB, and O. I don't care where you are. You could be in Oregon, I could be in Colorado, I could be in Mississippi, I could be in Scandinavia, I could be in Antarctica, I could be on the North and South Poles. If you look at anybody there, they only have one of four blood types: A, B, AB, and O. And if for any reason you had to go to the hospital and have an IV stuck in your arm, they're not going to say, "Oh, here's Mark or here's John, and he's from Oregon or he's from Colorado. We've got to rush down there real quick and grab some blood from his friends to keep him alive." No, that's not the way it works. We are achieving unity to the point of understanding that no matter where you go, no matter who just ran you off the road in road rage, that person that didn't know how to drive this morning, or that person that was in that hurry this morning for no justifiable reason, could still have the same love circulation,
Hmm.
that blood type that you or I do. So what we have to think about is we are all the same. And that's what we want to do with DEI, that diversity, that equity, because there's value in all of us, that inclusion. And again, with achieving unity through the harnessing of the power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others personally and professionally, because I speak on the personal side as well as the business side. That's what we have to do. That's what we have to come together. So DEI, again, back to
Hmm.
your question, is here to stay, but there is some adjustment in some of the beliefs that may have started out initially, but those have been adjusted, managed, and from going forward, DEI is here and we will benefit from it, all of us.
Well, let's see. Have you ever read a book called The Anatomy of Organized Hate by Lonnie Lusardo?
No, I haven't heard that one. Now, I listen to most of my books off. I'm going to give some advertising here Audible.
Yeah.
They have the books on tape.
Yeah.
That's how I listen to everything right now. I'm just the TD Jakes, and but no, if that book's on there, I'll look it up.
The
What's that
Anatomy of
title again?
Organized Hate. And Lonnie is one of the DEI consultants here in Seattle.
Oh,
And I actually got to go through one of his courses as part of a program in Seattle called Leadership. Still remember, this is good training. You're doing great training when somebody's still quoting you 10 or more years after you attended the class. His number one part in common as the shortcut is that they all made a friend. They all made a friend in the group that they used to hate. And so my question for you, Mark, is like early in that career, what's your first experience or memory of making a friend, right, of someone who might appear different to you,
when I
right?
was in Mississippi early, I didn't know that many people for second grade, which I can remember. So I got to turn that to the people that I met in Lovington,
Okay.
and I guess the ongoing friendship. One of my better friends played basketball with Bernard Butcher. He was a city council member later, but him and I were close going through school from the times that we met, playing basketball together, just always a friend, always somebody you could turn to, and he would turn to me. So there was a close-knit friendship in that process of someone that wasn't the same
Mhm.
color as I. And then I could give a bunch of names of the people, but just the friends that, again, I went through elementary school, but as I look at that, that was a little bit more, maybe more white oriented.
Mhm.
But when I got to the junior high and the high school, there were more elementary schools, so it was more divided as far as the different parts of town.
Mhm.
Junior high, there was less junior highs, middle schools, so we were more combined. And I guess
Mhm.
that's probably where I met Bernard, for example. But then high
Mhm.
school was even less. So we got to be friends more because of our closeness.
Yeah.
And luckily, there was about 120 people in my graduating class. So I was in a fairly small school, and it was only one high school in town.
Yeah.
So to go back and look at that, I think Willie I played basketball with, Oscar. I could just go back and just think back. Oh, Peaches, Bernard's little sister. One day we were always joking, and I was, for some reason, thought of it as a flirt going through school. And in this hallway one day, and the hallway goes off for 100 feet, 100 more than that. But she walked up and says, "Hey, you never walked me down the, well, you never walked me to class." And I
Yeah.
said, "Sweetheart, come on." And here we are in a mostly white school. I wrapped my arm around her and I said, "Come on." And as we started walking down that hall, you would have thought it was the parting of the Red Sea. Because here is Mark walking down the middle of the hallway with this beautiful black girl right there in his arms.
Mhm.
And I walked her down to, and just luckily, it was an in classroom, Mr. Collins' math class. And I was in
Okay.
his math analysis class and just walked into that room with her, still have my arm around her. And Mr. Collins' jaw almost dropped when he saw us walk into that room. I will never
Because,
forget the look on that face because I was walking in with a black woman, a
yeah.
black girl, because I was walking in there with my arm around someone. I don't know. But I think it was that internal prejudice that sometimes we all have. And that prejudice, there's 40 something prejudices from age, race, creed, sexual orientation, gender. There's so many biases that we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
All I know when I walked into that classroom, Mr. Collins, I thought I was going to pass out. I mean, just like it was funny. So that's just one incident
Mm.
that I remember. But we everybody except me is a beautiful person. I'm in there too. But we are all beautiful people if we just have the right attitude,
Yeah.
because that attitude creates our altitude. The lower our
Yeah.
attitude, the lower the altitude that we will have to grow further in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I love that you're around this. And again, I'm doing a lot of work in the Asian Pacific Islander field. So, for instance, if you didn't know the stat, like Asian Pacific Islanders in America, we have twice the advanced degrees, like the 2 degrees you have, right? A master's and a bachelor's. But we have actually 50% or less of the executive jobs. So one of the things we've been talking about is allyship. And I'd be curious from your point of view, how do you either define allyship and what do what do you teach around allyship for others?
Help us with that word allyship first. Let's make sure
Yeah.
our whole audience, including myself, understands what you mean by allyship. Not mean it's an ally, it's a ship of us, but I'll let you explain to us.
So ally again is what we've seen in the Asia Pacific Islander part is that an ally is somebody who's not Asia Pacific Islander but is sympathetic to the cause. Much like how you watch right your friend down the hallway, allyship is like right now, for instance, we have a great advocate in our group, and her name's Joan Eisenstadt. She's the white Jewish woman in the group, for lack of any other multiple descriptors, with also like 40 years in the meetings industries. And in her a demonstration of her allyship is that she recommended three of us who are Asia Pacific Islanders for an awards, and three of us got into finalists, and one of us actually won the award that we were nominated for. And there's something I don't know if you
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was a big deal for me to receive that, and part of most Asian cultures is like trying to be humble or lay low a little bit, not be as forward, right? Maybe as some other cultures around it, and yet those awards, at least in American business society, are really valuable, right? Like the degrees that you have, or the distinctions, or other awards that you've won, and so as an allyship she's helping us do sometimes the things that we don't do for ourselves. So that's currently how I might define allyship. I'm curious how you might define it.
That is a great situation that we all have to think about is we all have a different appearance, sometimes based on where we're from. Sometimes it's based on our background, of course, our family, our parents. What we want to do, and what I look at is your word allyship,
Yeah.
is we need to appreciate our differences, appreciate our character, but we need to make sure that that is always just an appreciation of value, because I have an article coming up in my newsletter this week about, is it an enemy or an NMI? Is that difference between us creating us as an enemy, or is it NMI, not my issue? If you
Hmm.
look different than I do, you have dark hair. Well, I have both have dark hair, but mine's a little grayer. But it's okay. One person has dark hair, one has color has light hair, red or blonde. We've got to appreciate that and then get by it. We want to appreciate the heritage of all of the continents, all seven of them, everyone on there, all the countries. We want to appreciate what everyone has been through, and we want to understand what even yourself as a Pacific Islander, how much you've gone through as far again as prejudice goes, and get beyond that prejudice and go forward that we are all, as I mentioned before, one of four blood types. Most of them are O and
Yeah.
A. So we could have the same blood type, but yet you're a Pacific Islander and I'm from Southern Mississippi, but we could have that same blood type. So we need to get
Hmm.
beyond that finding something wrong. Too many times we want to find something wrong.
Hmm.
Oh, John's got on a red shirt. Ah, Mark's got on a light blue shirt. What's wrong with that? Yeah, well, his background, he should have on a different colored shirt. People are always looking for something wrong instead of looking for something right. And that's where we
Hmm.
need to go with any kind of being an ally or allyship, enjoying the difference, but appreciating the heritage and appreciating the culture, because too much of our culture, too much of what we have learned has been on that negative side. Race, go back to race, creed, color, sexual orientation, your culture itself, where you're from. Excuse me. So as far as allyship, we
Yeah.
all need to be on that same ship as allies and quit fighting or finding wrong with someone else over something as wrong as they're native, where they were born. We still have two parents. We carry our parents' culture with us, but we want to improve that culture so that we know that being allies on any ship, we are together and we have one goal ahead of us, and that is working together to achieve greatness for all.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mark. Inspiring words. And of course, we'd always love to see more of that. And I appreciate your views on allyship. I want to take you back now to our good friend March of 2020. And I would love to hear, how did Mark handle, all right, a global shutdown, a pandemic, and what did you do on virtual on and around that time in March of 2020?
Well, I'm one of the lucky ones
You were
because
already virtual? Is that?
exactly. I
Yeah.
was already in the way of why do I have to come to work since I can do this all at home? I was already in that mode. So when we went virtual,
Yeah.
boom, you don't have to come anymore. Grab your stuff, take it with you, or you don't need this desk anymore. So I was one of the lucky ones. The only problem I had, like everybody else, was paper towels and toilet paper.
When did you go virtual then, Mark? How early or yeah, how early on did you move into the virtual space?
I was virtual back in the 1980s
Oh,
because I went through a lot of things called virtual 3270 emulation, which is the monitor that you see in front of you. Back then, they were the old monitors, but we had even those at home, and we didn't use AOL, but we were plugged into that wall to be able to get in and see things and be able to work offline or virtual, as it's called. Back then, it was called offline. But yeah, so I was lucky. A lot of us
wow.
were. A lot of us in the IT industry. It was a very small step for us. It was almost a joy saying thank you. If it wasn't that all the restaurants are now closed, but besides that, it was not a problem for me.
So
I'm very lucky.
over the years that you've been online, what are some of the things that you discovered as your own personal best practices?
Don't be afraid to call somebody and talk online. I'm going to start putting together quick 1 minute virtual, excuse me, meetings so I can
Hmm.
send to people even on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
not just send them a note, but send them a virtual hi, how are you? The same thing I would type in a note, put it into a recording like we're doing now, and start sending that out. And that's one of the things that my friend Daniel showed me. And I thought that's a great idea. So for me, I like the virtual. I like what we're doing right now, John. I
Yeah.
can see you. You can
Yeah.
see me.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to bet you a couple of nickels that that's not your real background behind you. And of course,
Not today.
mine's a blob blue. I could throw up an island picture behind me real quick if you want me to. But
Yeah.
the fun of it is we can see each other and we can talk to each other. But I think you and I have a little bit of a virtual association that we're not afraid of it. There's some people that, there you go. I like that. Uh, there's some people that are not comfortable. Computer literate, I think is the word some people call it, but they're just not comfortable with that yet. So it makes it difficult. And most of my meetings, most of my coaching, not much of my speaking. I do still speak on site, but
Hmm.
a lot of that is online or virtual. So it's a situation of how can we work together and how can I work better with some of the people that are not computer literate or at least still comfortable with theoretically, and that's another thing. You could be in the Pacific Islands right now and nobody would know the difference. If you were there or where you are in Oregon or where I am, I could be saying, I'm in Mississippi or I could be saying anywhere. But it's one of those
Yes.
situations that it doesn't matter where you are, we can still do this. And we need to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the key pieces I learned too over the last 4 or 5 years is that there are many people who said you can't network online, and I'm pretty sure Mark and I mean, that's how Mark and I met. So,
Exactly.
the whole fact around it is that it actually opens up a level of networking that was never before obtainable. And now I'm actually been backing that up too. I probably met about 60% of the people I've met online. I've met in person now as I'm back to moving around the country.
Mhm.
And we already have this relationship. I mean, you're talking about relationships and friends and other types of things, is that I think it's important that the friendship can often be made over technology, You actually sometimes learn more. I'm actually staying at my friend's house, and he presented at my conference, and he said he felt closer. He was presenting in a hybrid environment. And he said he actually felt closer to the virtual people than the in-room people, and a lot of that was due to the chat, because the chat allowed people to feel safer sharing some more internal, feelings or thoughts about his presentation. And so I thought that was something unique. He said, again, feeling closer to a virtual audience than an in-person audience.
Isn't that interesting? Because again, you have a little bit more freedom. You don't have people just on the fun side. You don't know what shoes I'm wearing. I mean, I could have on tennis shoes. I could have on slippers. I could have on my bunny slippers. There you go.
I don't, I don't have any shoes on yet today. I'm in
Okay,
like
yeah,
a,
exactly. That's another point. You don't have your shoes on. I do have on house slippers, but and I have the shirt on. But that's the thing with virtual. You show people what you want them to see, and
yeah,
that's what is advantageous to this, is that people can be more comfortable. Again, of course, Sunday I was wearing a t-shirt.
yeah,
Weekdays I do wear a collared shirt.
yeah,
But that comfort level that people can create within themselves, how are you or I most comfortable in front of a camera? And then, of course, there's some people that don't even like being in front of a camera. But then again, if we want to do that, we can always turn that camera off. So
yeah,
again, like you're saying, John, that ability to talk as we want to talk, share as we feel comfortable sharing, the
yeah.
virtual world has opened that up to us, right?
hmm what's one of your best moments online in the last 5 years, whether it was you presenting or being a participant? I'm just kind of curious, like, what's one of your highlight moments in the last 5 years of being online?
Wow, that's a tough question, John. On
I'm
the
here to ask
highlights.
all the easy. This is a softball,
Mhm.
Mark.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's that may have been a fastball.
Ooh,
The most and I guess just meeting people and when talking to someone, be able to see their family or their dogs and cats too. And but being in the conference room that you're in a meeting, and I could give a dozen names, but you're in an office meeting, for example, and then say, hey Johnny, hey Janie, hey Sammy, hey Susie, can you hang on after the meeting? So when everybody else leaves, you're still one-on-one, or maybe it's two or three people. You're still having a joyful conversation and talking about, I think, like you just mentioned, John, we're on the call right now, but we do all happen to be in the same town, relatively close to each other, however that may be. Let's go
yeah.
uh, do the 5 o'clock thing. Let's go meet somewhere and have a beverage or appetizer. And I think if there's anything that excites me the most about those is that ability to find out that someone does live close to you or next to you. And living in Denver, that actually happens quite a bit. People in New York, you're in Portland, you're a pretty good sized town. So that could happen quite a bit to find out somebody, what do you mean you're my next door neighbor? And I have heard that happen.
So we actually have a story around one of our happy hours. So we were running happy hour every Friday, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, since March of 2020, and it kind of turned into a little bit like therapy. Like, people were so excited to come to happy hour because, like, we heard it all, right? We were never recording. People were open to say anything they want. So people were complaining about, it was the toilet paper, losing jobs, getting jobs, moving, everything around it. But the funny part was that a plane started going over our house, all right? And it was like a prop plane, and two other people were on, and they were hearing the same plane too. And the funny part is that two people realized that they were less than 1 mile from each other, but they had been on this call for like over 3 or 4 months, and they just suddenly realized that they lived next to each other. And so
Is
they found a time to meet each other outdoors, when it was early pandemic. And it just blew them away that it took a Zoom call and a plane.
amazing. And I have a friend, Rob Fenstermacher, and he does a Friday happy hour every other week.
Ah,
And there's been some people there that, oh, well, I live there too. And that's one of those situations, not next door, but in those ways. And he has the same thing. He has a very open happy hour.
yes,
And for me, some of the language for a couple of the people is a little bit non-professional. I'll just be polite and saying,
yes.
but some of the point And it's interesting. But that, like you're saying, John, to be able to talk to people and
Yeah.
share with people when we walk down the street, if we're walking down that theoretical main street of whatever town we're in, how
Mhm.
many times do two people feel comfortable to talking with each other when they're stopped on the street? Even let's just call it a bus stop.
Yeah.
And people walking down there, or is it with a taxi? Somebody waiting for a taxi, somebody walks by. How many people say, "Hey, how are you?" Or if they do, it's, "Oh, fine," and that's
Yeah.
it. That's the end of it. Where
Yeah.
on the internet, as you're mentioning, it's so much easier to talk and to share and be open. And again, let's just take it back to that bus stop. Somebody might say, "Oh no, I'm talking to somebody and my shirt's not tucked in. I wear my blue shirt instead of my red shirt." We start finding something wrong with ourselves
Mm.
when it really does not matter. NMI, not my issue. Don't make it turn it into something being an enemy. It's don't be an enemy. It's not my issue. If we could just start picking up on that. And again, I hope you read my newsletter coming out on Thursday. And it talks about that.
Mm. Well, I
What we
look
need to
forward to that.
do,
I look forward to that,
please.
Mark. I knew a speaker recently like brought like a stuffed monkey, right, that had Velcro straps, right, and she would put it on and like talk about how problems are like these monkeys that like jump on you and hang on you. And her bit was not my monkey. Like there are some problems in the world that should not be your monkey. Like they try and attach to you, but she was trying to discern which problems you need to handle and which ones you should just really say, this is not my problem. This is somebody else's problem.
That's
So,
right. So that monkey on your back, let that monkey
yeah.
go. Good point.
Well, Mark, you're I think a person that deals with leaders. You probably look into the future. You've been online for a long time. So, what are some of your predictions or what are the like some wishes you would like to see in the virtual and hybrid environment?
The biggest thing is we need to be able to set some clear objectives right up front and don't assume so much because situations, and this is all in fun, but it's just like the term that you used earlier about the ally, allyship. Too many times we don't understand what someone else is saying, and it could be because of terminology. Like I said, I'm down here in the South right now, and some words are used differently than others. And I know sometimes since I've been down here for a while, sometimes I talk a little bit funny when I'm talking to other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's what they've learned. That's their culture.
Yeah.
So as we speak to each other and as we use terms, just I did. Hey, thank you. I like that allyship. What does that mean to you?
Mhm.
And if we would just open up, and we can do it. So we want to be able to set those clear objectives. And when we're getting more and more virtual, as the tools come, and there's a tool coming every day, and it's Microsoft this and Zoom that, and Verizon this, and they all change sometimes, but they're not improving. Change is short term, improving is long term. Something else I speak and teach on and reach to others. We don't, we're too many times doing that quick fix scenario. So in the virtual world, if you're going to give me a quick fix, explain it first. Back to the same thing as understanding terminology. Wait a minute, don't expect me to read your mind. I don't know what you know.
Yeah.
You may know a lot more than me. I'm sorry, I don't know what you know. I know a little bit of some things, but I don't know what you just, when you come back from your vacation, I don't know that it was raining on that day. I don't know that the sun came up so beautiful on that day. Explain it to me. That we do a lot of
Mhm.
time in our writing,
Mm.
in our talking. That's what we all have to do in this virtual world, using some visual aids, perhaps, to help us
Mm.
understand more in what we're doing. Sometimes, maybe like I'm doing right now, we need to keep it shorter and sweeter and not stretch it out too long.
Yeah.
Be able to keep your audience's attention and realize that, and I am ADD, ADHD. I call it the A disorder. It's all of those ADD, ADHD, whatever it might be. I need attention. I need something to grab my attention. So it's easy
Mhm.
for me to talk into this little light here on my monitor. Some people
Yeah.
it's not. They want it. What you got, give it to me. Let's get on with it. Get in, get out, get on with your life. I think that was a Chili's commercial. I like it. So that's one of the places that we need to work on. Active listening. And for us, I know it's not going to be a problem. Follow up. Because if I have it right, I have you down to be on my podcast, which is every Thursday. Have you on my podcast on May the 7th. So I hope you have it on your
2025,
calendar. No,
right?
let's do it this year. Let's do it May of this year. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yes,
Mark's got
2025.
a new technology. It's called time travel. Let's do it. Uh, one of the things that was actually great in our conference this year, talking about inclusion, is that we did have a number of blind people inside, or sight challenged people inside of the program.
Thank you.
So there was a part where we have a magician, right? And a magician is actually pretty visual. So we had somebody starting to do audio descriptions during the magic, and the chat blew up, and they were all saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you for this audio description," right?
Nice.
And so there are times when I think when you include people that it actually becomes fun, it becomes interesting, right? It allows you to see. Somebody also in the audience really gave a compliment too, saying, "You're not the one that's blind. I'm the one that's blind. I'm blind to how you experience the world, and I need to learn more so I can understand, from that viewpoint." And I think that was something that really powerful that came out of the conference. One year we're looking to have enough resources to add sign language interpreting to our conference. That uses something usually that has a hard cost to it, and unfortunately now, like captions is really useful because they're automated now and pretty good, about 90% correct. But sign language is still one of those things that is not easily automated yet. I have seen some stuff around it where there is some robotic arms that would actually listen to the words and actually were able to sign many of the correct pieces. That was a new piece of technology that came out of, I think,
How
MIT.
interesting.
Yeah, or one of the other places with that. So with this, Mark, what do you see on your horizon for 2025? What's one of the top things that you would like to see achieved by the end of 2025?
My first priority right now is to complete my book. I've been working on it for several years now. I'll get going on it. I'll start doing really well on it, and then something distracts me. And maybe it's the A disorder, ADD,
Mhm.
ADHD, all those things that I can
Yeah.
write for a while, and then I over edit myself, and it just takes me too long. I've taken these classes about how to write a book over the weekend, and boy,
Yep.
they sound good until you get right into it. But again, my book on my speech, Achieving Unity through the power, through the ability to harness, encouraging, inspiring, and including others personally and professionally to complete that book by the end of this year is a top priority for me.
Well,
So
here I'll
don't
give you one of
hesitate to
my.
harass me.
Well, I am two-time author, Mark, and I got to tell you, internally for me, here's one of the things that really helped. Like my first book was called 50 Digital Team Building Games, and I mapped out a schedule. I had about 41 writing days between the deadline. It was about over 5 months, but I was working, so I can only allocate a certain amount of time to the writing. And the most enlightening thing that happening for me is that after 1 month, I went back to the chart and said, where am I and where am I supposed to be? And that's when I realized I was wildly off, right? I only had like two done. I was supposed to have like 12 done. And I said, this book is not going to happen unless I change my behavior. And so I became what I call the world's most introverted extrovert, Mark, right? I stopped going to all the social events, all the other meetings. I stopped going to the educational sessions and really got into the writing. And I had 6 months for the deadline, and I actually finished the book in 5 months, Mark. So, those
Congratulations. That is awesome.
it's one of the lessons I learned at Microsoft, which is deadlines, whether they're artificial or they're real. If you set deadlines, right, stuff gets done. And so I just well, there was a hard deadline. I took up money from a publisher. So that was the other leverage. And by the way, too, Mark, I failed, just so you're in the club, I failed 4 times over the course of a decade trying to write my first book.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm just telling you, there's hope and there's, like the focus, right? Like what's in the green box of yours. If you say focus on it, I can tell you that authorship is like climbing a mountain, which means that no one can ever take it away from you once you're done.
Mhm.
And
I like
and
that.
and
That's a
then
great quote. Once you're on top of
something
that
else
mountain.
happens. Yeah, something else happens when you become an author. And that's why most speakers want a book is because, well, one, you have the world's thickest business card to give out. And number two
Exactly.
is that, books are still hard to throw away. Even the books that I've had, I've seen them come up on the secondary market. And I'm actually okay with that because that means that somebody saw it. They said, oh, I think I want to sell this. And so now when they sell it, somebody else is going to see it. Uh,
Exactly.
there was there was a paper in our town that was a business paper, and they actually did the research, and they said it was an average of 5 people read the same paper because they passed it around.
Hmm. And you
So,
know what I work on
anyways,
with that too? I like that because, like you said,
mm,
same paper, five people pass it around. I would love to have a discussion with those five people of what they
oh,
read in that piece of paper, their value that they received
well,
from it, and the differences.
you make that book a key part of your strategy, and it would be great to do something like that, Mark, which is have some form of office hours, which is like a book club of anybody who's read your book to come online, right? And you would discuss certain portions of it throughout the year. And it's just a way to build, you're achieving unity. And I think one of the things I believe in is that unity is achieved through community, right?
Because
When
it
you
is
build a
unity in a community and opportunity. And I always capitalize the unity in both of them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think you get like-minded people or even different-minded people, but with a similar goal who are ready to come and discover how can they take action in their piece of the world. Because that's what the other thing I see. Like my mission is to get rid of boring ass virtual meetings. Oh, sorry, Mark, for the language. But yours is to achieve unity in as many places as possible. And it's a mission that is certainly larger than yourself. So you need people right, to be able to do that. Is about right,
Mhm.
Mark?
Well, and the thing is, there's different ways to call it, but that ability not just feedback, but
Yes.
feed forward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We talk
That's
about it
what
in
I
Speaker
think.
Speak Live. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we want to do. I don't mind you come back and saying you don't like something. Give me some feed forward. What
Yeah.
would I do different? What would I do better from your perspective? Not just you, but just the you, generic
Yeah.
you. What would I do better from your perspective? And talk to people about that, which goes back to the same thing about words that we use.
Yes.
Don't hesitate to ask them because there are many times people say a word and they themselves, even though they use it often, don't have a clear explanation of what the word means.
Yeah, that was my experience at Microsoft when they had acronyms for everything, right? Mark, you're in IT. You know that there's a
I
TLA
worked at
or a
IBM for a
three-level
while in Boulder.
acronym. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was like a coded language. And so I actually spent the first 5 months in this group decoding the language and building a dictionary for it because I was lost and nobody was willing to say you're lost. But let me tell you, everybody, like at least 60% of the audience was just lost. And you'd ask them, what does this acronym mean? And some people didn't know. They just knew to call it that, but they
Hmm.
didn't know. They didn't
Hmm.
know.
That's
All right.
exactly right.
Well, speaking of no, I know you know one thing, Mark, which is this. If you could get people to magically remember one thing from this podcast, what's the one thing you would want them to remember?
There's a couple of them, but I'll try to go to just one. But the number one thing that I work on, the number one action is I talk about achieving unity through the power, through harnessing the power of encouraging, inspiring, and including others, is there is no need for anger. Anger
Mhm.
has no value.
Mm.
Anger, speaking of acronyms, is nothing more than actions not gaining effective results. Anger, actions not gaining effective results. There's no time anger has created any sort of value. You can say, oh, yeah, I got upset and that person did what I wanted them to do. There was no need for anger. If you would have explained it to that person, it would have worked a lot better. So again, anger, anger, actions not gaining effective results.
Mark,
We
well,
could take that forward.
Thank you so much for sharing your time. And I love that this is your mission, and hearing a little bit more about how you grew up. Again, we've seen each other a lot on screen, but I certainly learned a lot more about you today, which is why I love these podcasts. So I look forward to seeing you this Wednesday. And good show to your hosting this Wednesday, of course. I'm sure you don't need it, but I'm going to give it to you anyways.
It's going to be fun because we're going to do it a different way again, like I did last time. Dana's not there, so
Oh,
I'm going to do the whole meeting. No, all except for our 10 minutes in our work groups. It's going to be
sure.
people giving feedback on the speech. So feed forward on the speech so we can all benefit from it
Yeah.
and learn from each other.
Outstanding. Well, Mark, thanks again. And again, I look forward to seeing you Wednesday and other times online. Thanks again, Mark.
That sounds great, John. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Cheers. All right. We've been here with Mark, right? Mark Entrekin, who just says, we got to achieve unity. And that's a great piece. Think about in all your communities, how could you create unity? How could you create something better? How could you be less angry? Right. I think that's a key part. I think the only time, Mark, I was just thinking about that is that sometimes I play angry. I'm actually not angry, but I play angry only because there's a few people in the world that respond to anger when nothing else they respond to. Although, again, I'm just playing anger. I'm actually really not angry the majority of my time. So, again, I love the messages for that. Meanwhile, let's go ahead. If you are online, subscribe, share, like, and comment here to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. If you want all the podcasts, you want to hear things like Mark or anything else, make sure and go to engagingvirtualmeetings.online, subscribe, and you get a new podcast every Wednesday. You'll get to hear from somebody new. Again, look forward to the Engaging Conference here. We just had ours, and we already have the date set for next year, October 21 to 23rd, 2025. We hope that Mark is going to be there. Maybe Mark will actually be a speaker. And we'll go to the Engaging Retreat again on October 21st through the 23rd. I'm John Chen. This has been another episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. And great messages. I love all the guests that come on here. And most importantly, I really enjoy getting to meet and ideally make friends with new people that I've met online. So look forward to seeing you next time.
Drawing star people and keep people. Show